This week we are studying the circulatory system. On our Do Now, we talked about the four chambers of the heart, which we will come back to in just a minute. But first, let's talk about the purpose of the circulatory system or the cardiovascular system. We talked about this yesterday. You should have a lot of this stuff written down in your notes from yesterday, and you can follow along with that. So the circulatory system, also known as the cardiovascular system. What is the purpose of this system? Purpose of this system. Yes. Yeah. So the whole purpose of the system is to circulate blood through the body. And as the blood circulates through the body, so pump blood through the body, it supplies oxygen and nutrients to all of the tissues and organs. And it also removes waste. So it's this constant circulating of materials. And yes, it circulates white blood cells that help with the immune system. It circulates hormones and drugs and other chemicals. Everything is being transported. The first section of the chapter that you read yesterday is called the body's transportation system. So that's the purpose of this system, is transporting things all over the body. When we talked about it yesterday, a lot of people throughout the day said, well, aren't the lungs part of the circulatory system? They're not, because the lungs are part of the respiratory system. The purpose of the respiratory system is to get oxygen into the tissues so you can break down sugar into energy. We'll talk about this system next week. You don't have to write this down. But people think about it because in the lungs, there's a lot of arteries and veins, and it's picking up the oxygen that's being carried. It's one of the very important nutrients or materials that's being carried around the body. But as you do your body systems project, the circulatory system goes through every single one of the organs and helps maintain homeostasis. It connects all the different systems. And obviously there's muscles. It goes through the digestive system, picks up nutrients, picks up water, goes through the kidneys and gets rid of waste. So the circulatory system is really connecting all these systems together. But by itself, its purpose is to pump blood to the body and supply nutrients and take away waste. So it's also known as the cardiovascular system. We talked about this yesterday. The cardiovascular system is made up of what organs? What organs make it up? The heart. Cardio means heart. And the veins and arteries, which are the vascular tissue. So, having trouble writing. It's the heart and the blood vessels. You remember when we talked about plants? We talked about vascular and non-vascular plants. Vascular tissue is a system of tubes to move materials. So, cardiovascular system, the heart and blood vessels. Questions about this? Yes. So next, let's look at the types of blood vessels. We've got veins, arteries, and capillaries. Who can tell me about one of these? Veins, arteries, or capillaries? And this is something that people tend to get really mixed up, so I'll give you a couple ways to remember it. Veins, arteries, capillaries. What is one of them? Yes? Okay, so the arteries carry blood away from the heart. The way I remember this, arteries away. Artery away. And they carry blood away from the heart in most cases. It is oxygen-rich blood. When we do the circulatory pattern here in a minute, you'll see there is one set of arteries that actually have oxygen-poor blood, but that's okay. We'll get there in a minute. So arteries away, they carry the blood away from the heart, and we usually show them as red because it is oxygen-rich blood. In your body, the blood is not actually red and blue. It's actually brighter red and then kind of purplish. But making it red and blue makes it easy to see the difference on the models we use. So then what's a vein? A vein carries blood. Excellent. So for the most part, it's going to be oxygen poor blood. So we show it as blue, and you can remember veins carry blood into the heart. So vein in, artery away. That's a good way to remember it, and I tell you, people get these mixed up all the time, so remember artery, vein. So then what's a capillary? Yes. Yes. Vein in, exactly. Because vein, So what's a capillary? Capillary. Yes. So capillaries are these tiny, tiny blood vessels, and it's where the materials are being exchanged. So there's lots of capillaries in the lungs, exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide. There's lots of capillaries in the villi of the small intestines, collecting nutrients that are digested. There's capillaries in the muscles, exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide and glucose. And because this is where materials are being exchanged, this is where it goes from being an artery to being a vein. And we call them capillary beds. And if you look at the pictures in the textbook, we'll jump over here to a picture. So this is obviously a simplified picture, but we have the capillary beds where it's going from being a vein to an artery. So you've got from the heart, and then the capillary bed where it's dropping stuff off, and then capillary bed where it's picking stuff up. So capillaries. And again, in some places they are only one cell thick, so that the materials can move in and out by diffusion. Everybody have capillaries? Now, before I give you the copy of the heart to color, I want everybody to actually draw a heart, because I think it helps you understand all the parts. Now, yes, you need to draw this. I will show you how to draw it. People have asked, well, why do people draw the heart like this? Because that's not really how it looks. Well, it does kind of. Now let's draw a better heart here. So I'll show you. No, this is one heart. So remember, we talked about the heart has 4 chambers because it's actually made of 2 pumps. There's 2 atria and 2 ventricles. So let's take a look here. The atria in a building, what's an atrium? Atria is plural for more than one atrium. Yeah. So an atrium is an entryway. So the atrium, you're going to have a right atrium and a left atrium. Which one's right and which one's left?
The one on that side is the right one.
Yes. Why is this one the right one? Yes, because if you're looking at me, it's my right. Batter's right. Stage right. Right? If you are operating on somebody, it's their right, not yours. So kind of right is left, left is right. But it's very important to make sure you get that right. So right atrium and left atrium. The entryway. So the smaller top chambers of the heart are the atria. Then the ventricles should be easy to remember because they're actually V-shaped. Yeah. So V-shaped ventricles, these are the lower muscular chambers that pump blood to the lungs and to the body. The atria, really from the atrium, it's just going from the atrium to the ventricle. Very short distance. Doesn't need a lot of muscle. Squeezes it, pushes it in there. From there it goes to the heart, and then, to the lungs, and then it comes back. I should have drawn this blue because it's going to the lungs. And then it comes back from the lungs into the left atrium, left ventricle, and then goes out to the body. Atrium, ventricles. And we can draw our little dotted line. I know it's gotten very messy, hasn't it? Right side of the heart, left side of the heart. But ventricles, lower muscular chambers. So this is the right ventricle, left ventricle. Okay. You now have in front of you this, on the very back of your worksheet packet, is this. This is going to be, we're going to trace your way through this to show the blood flow of the heart, to label all the different parts of the heart. So you need to take a look at this. You need to, you will be labeling things like this on the quiz and the test, but I gave you this one to simplify it. This is, when you look in the textbook, you have this picture, which is obviously much more detailed. Many more capillary beds. And we also have this picture of the heart. Oops. This picture of the heart, which is again much more detailed. But in order to figure out what's happening, we're going to start with a simpler picture. So here we go. Starting with blood that is coming from the body. So from the body, here, and we're going to say it's oxygen poor blood because it has just been in the muscles and the capillary beds, and it's coming into the heart. So is this going to be an artery or a vein? Into the heart. Artery or vein? Vein. Veins go in. And so this, and the picture doesn't show this, there's actually one from the lower part of the body and one from the upper part of the body. This is called the vena cava, which is the largest vein from the upper and lower portions of the body. So vena is the vein. Vena cava goes into the heart. And as it comes into the heart with oxygen poor blood, it goes into the right atrium. So right atrium is here. Right atrium, the receiving chamber on the right side of the heart. As I mentioned before, an atrium just pumps blood a very short distance. It's very small. And it goes here to the right ventricle. Right ventricle is here. You can see it's kind of V-shaped. Right ventricle. Then, so this is the first side of the pump. Where does the right ventricle pump to? Up and out to the lungs. So this is another, so this is one valve here. And then it goes through this valve up to the lungs. Now it's leaving the heart. It's going away from the heart. So is it an artery or a vein? It's an artery. But it hasn't been to the lungs yet. So this artery actually is shown as blue because it has oxygen poor blood. The lungs, we call this the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary means lungs. And so then it's going to go into all these capillary beds in the lungs. Yes. So the vena cava is oxygen poor blood. It goes to the heart to be pumped to the lungs. You can't get oxygen in the heart. The oxygen gets into the blood in the lungs. The vena cava here is going up from the body and down from the upper body into the right side of the heart. And then the pulmonary artery to the capillary beds in the lungs. And we will talk about these next week. This is where the exchange of gas is happening. Oxygen comes, it just goes through diffusion. Oxygen diffuses in, carbon dioxide diffuses out. And then it's going to go back to the heart to be pumped to the rest of the body.
What is the little, it's coming in the right ventricle? It's like the little three.
Oh, this?
Yeah.
This is actually a valve. And it has three little flaps. It's almost kind of like balloons. And then when it pumps, it squeezes out. But this valve here and this valve here, they keep the blood from backwashing. If it backwashes, it's not going to pump as efficiently. And actually, when you hear the heartbeat, the sound you're hearing is the valves shutting and the blood going against that. So it's a valve It's a valve to keep the blood going the right way. So now, there's several different ones. I don't remember which is which. There's the tricuspid, which means 3 parts. There's the semilunar, which means half moon shaped. So there's a bunch of different valves. The 4 major, there's one valve here, one here, one here, and one here. And so the 2 really big ones are from the ventricles, and the smaller ones are from atrium to ventricle. Yes. Ah, you can feel your pulse in your wrist and in your neck because there's so much blood pressure to get it along the whole, through your whole circulatory system that you can feel that pulse of the pump going pump, pump, pump. Hang on one second. Still on the right side of the heart? Let's finish going through and then we'll see. I'm not sure what you're asking here. So then we have leaving the lungs with oxygen-rich blood, but it's going into the heart, so it's a vein. This is the pulmonary vein. Goes into the left atrium here, and from the left atrium to the left ventricle. The left ventricle is the most muscular chamber in the heart, and it doesn't really look like it in this picture because the heart's kind of three-dimensional, and the right ventricle is kind of more on top, and this one is more behind. But the left ventricle has the thickest muscle wall. It's the strongest chamber because where does it have to pump the blood? To the whole entire body, all the way down to your toes and all the way up to the top of your head. So that one's going to be the most muscular. Okay, so from the left ventricle, it goes out here through this valve, and this is the biggest artery in the body. Does anybody know what this is called? It's called the aorta. The highest blood pressure is right here as it leaves the heart. This is the arch of the aorta, and it's going to go all the way down. It's going to have branches to all the major organs, all the major parts of your body. But check this out. As it leaves the heart, it's going to go off on these 3 branches. Guess where these branches go? Yes. The carotid arteries branch off of here. And that's why the carotid arteries, going up your neck here, are an easy place to take your pulse because it's just left your heart. There's a pretty strong pulse there. They're relatively close to the surface. The carotid arteries, obviously, it's very important to get oxygen to your brain. It's one of the first places that the branches go. The third one goes off to your arms because it's right there. So then the blood goes here and through the aorta. Then this is the descending aorta and throughout the body. When you look over here at this guy, at our model, Arthur here, you see the femoral vein and arteries. Femoral runs along the femur. We talked about those when we talked about the skeletal system. So major veins and arteries, you see branches that go here to the digestive system, to the liver, to the lungs. So major branches for all of those things to supply. And then, after the capillary beds, of course, it goes around again. So into the heart, right atrium, right ventricle, to the lungs, left atrium, left ventricle, to the whole body. On your worksheet, you see a few other labels. Let me show you what else is being labeled. The lines right here that go to here and here are showing you the 2 different types of valves, which we talked about. Those are valves. And these are the valves on the other side. Again, between the atrium and the ventricle, between the ventricle and the vessel going out. And then the other thing you'll see here, and I know the textbook talked about this a little bit, is this here is called the septum. Septum septum just means wall, and the septum is the wall between the left and the right sides. The other thing that is in here is a special bundle of nerves that controls the heart beating. And that bundle of nerves is called the pacemaker. Sometimes if your heart is not functioning properly, usually in older people, they might need an artificial pacemaker. But you have your own pacemaker that's controlling your heartbeat. And when you exercise in response to carbon dioxide in the blood or adrenaline or whatever, causes the pacemaker to tell your heart to beat faster, or relaxing to beat it slower. So septum, pacemaker, and then I believe that's all the other things that were on your picture. Yeah, the pacemaker, and I believe we'll watch the Bill Nye video that has the picture on it, but the pacemaker sends out an electrical signal. When we talk about the nervous system in a couple weeks, the nervous system runs on chemical and electrical signals. The electrical signals cause the muscles to contract. The muscles contract because of electricity. So if you're in electrical shock, it makes your muscles contract. You've seen like the defibrillators to make the heart, to restart the heart, electrical shock to reset that. All right, next. So again, this is a little bit more detailed. This is just from the textbook, showing you kind of a little bit more detailed version of what's happening. You'll be labeling a picture like this on your worksheet. And then this picture is, again, a little bit more realistic picture, but hopefully once you've labeled the simplified cartoon picture, this makes sense. It's all the same stuff. The right atrium, the right ventricle, then it goes to the lungs, left atrium, left ventricle, to the body. And so this is a labeled picture from the textbook, and there's a similar picture here on the back of your worksheets, so you can kind of see those side by side. All right, the last thing for this lesson is this part, and we actually ended up talking about this a little bit at the beginning of class period. The blood vessels that take blood to and from the heart muscle are called the coronary arteries and veins. Coronary means crown. Coronary also refers to the heart. So when you look at this model of the heart, you see all those blood vessels there. Obviously, it's very important for the heart muscle to get oxygen. Remember, the heart is made of what type of muscle? Cardiac muscle. Very specialized muscle that beats every second of every day from before you're born. This cardiac muscle obviously needs its supply of oxygen and glucose and all that. So if these blood vessels get clogged by a blood clot or by plaque from the arteries, then that muscle is not getting enough oxygen. So kind of like a muscle cramp, or when you're feeling that oxygen burn of your muscles not getting enough oxygen, that is a heart attack. And so heart attacks can be cured. Blood thinners can thin the blood and hopefully get the blood past it. They can do an angioplasty where they actually put a balloon in to widen it out. Or in extreme cases, when those arteries are blocked, they can do bypass. And so they actually literally bypass the clogged area so the cardiac muscle gets enough oxygen. So tomorrow we will do a quick flip lesson over the parts of the blood. There is also, I will post, it's a picture, an animated picture just of the blood flow through this picture.